Windows Vista, otherwise known by many as a failed product produced by the development team over at Microsoft, is an operating system that succeeds Windows XP. Windows Vista is one of the biggest versions of Windows that has ever been overhauled, and is also the version of Windows with the longest and most in-depth development process, spanning over the course of 5 years in the history of the development of Microsoft Windows.
According to Wikipedia, new features of Windows Vista include an updated graphical user interface and visual style known as Windows Arrow, a new search component built into the Start menu in Windows Explorer, redesigned networking, audio, print, and display subsystems, and new multimedia tools built into premium versions of Windows Vista, like Windows DVD Maker and Windows Media Center. The reasoning behind this video and why I'm actually talking about Windows Vista, especially of all things in my videos, is because of my belated announcement of Microsoft's end of extended support date, which was April 11th, 2017, a little over a month ago. Windows Vista was a crucial part of me getting into technology and computers, and without it, it's very likely that I would have went down a completely different path. Well, I can remember those days back when I would kick the slow desktop PC under the desk, probably because it would perform too slow or stop responding. All the troubles me and many others have had stemmed from the lack of proper hardware that Windows Vista usually shipped and could smoothly run on. The PC in question was an eMachine's W3609. It had about a half a gig of DDR2 4200 memory and was eventually upgraded to 1 gig so that we can at least multitask a little bit better. But what made it even worse was the slow processor it came with, which was an Intel Celeron D356. It's a single-core Cedar Mill budget chip clocked at 3.33 GHz with a measly half a megabyte of L2 cache. To put this in perspective, the Core 2 Duo E6700, which is in the computer right now, has 4 megabytes of L2 cache and runs infinitely faster. It's literally 8 times as much level 2 cache. Well, anyway, my experience wasn't completely destroyed. I loved tinkering around with the computer and seeing what I could accomplish. I didn't really do that many heavy workloads at all, because I was really just 8 to 10 years old at the time. The most I ever did was type like Word documents and draw in Microsoft Paint, because it was at that time in my life when I actually had creativity and imagination, all of which have been essentially drained out of my body. The only problem is that that computer came with Windows Vista Home Basic, which eliminated many features including the beloved Arrow glass transparency effects. I ended up upgrading to Vista Ultimate myself and consistently reformatting the PC every about 30 days or so when the activation would expire, but it was pretty worth it. I love being able to tinker, and quite frankly, it was such a great experience being able to see just what you couldn't do with such a slow computer. And that eMachine's computer, yeah, that's still running today, but it does have a different processor, and it has been since upgraded to 2 gigs of DDR2 4200. It's currently running Windows Server 2008 R2 in my closet with an extra 500 gig hard drive, and is serving its purpose as essentially a NAS active domain server, DHCP server, and a Plex server.
Anyway, we'll be taking a look back to Windows Vista and its development process. Development started in 2002 as Windows codenamed Longhorn. It was built upon the technology of Windows XP and was destined to be a complete overhaul of the operating system with a new security architecture called Palladium, a new 3D user interface with hardware accelerated technology, and more. It looked very similar to that of Windows Vista, with general concepts down, like the sidebars you see in these screenshots. You may also notice that the looks of each of these screenshots look somewhat or almost completely different from one another. This is caused by the fact that the Windows Longhorn beta builds were almost always changing, and there was no final design set in stone. Now, the Longhorn development was broken up into what Microsoft calls milestones, so we're about 8 milestones before Windows Longhorn development was reset in mid-2004. Each milestone was released to thousands of volunteers and companies to be tested for problems. Each milestone had little patches or changes here and there until after milestone 4, where new technologies were introduced to the operating system. Milestone 4 marked huge Windows Explorer changes and introduced a theme known as Plex. Milestone 5 marked the release of several parental controls options which were seen in Windows Vista, as well as libraries which were removed in the final version of Windows Vista but were eventually added in Windows 7 and are still used in Windows 10. The last build of Milestone 6 had arrow-like glass effects added to the windows. Early builds of Milestone 7 marked the release of a new theme known as Slate. Later builds saw the downfall of the progress of Windows Longhorn, which involved the removal of the sidebar. Now, as I mentioned previously, Windows Longhorn had many issues, and after Milestone 8, the development was reset. According to Wikipedia, Microsoft was really shocked to see how well OS X Tiger looked with its file searching, graphics, and sound processing, and how reliable and well-performing those features were compared to their counterparts in Windows Longhorn. Microsoft co-president Jim Ulgen told the world that the company was losing focus of its original intentions and stated that the development would be reset and that the Windows Server 2003 base code would be used to build Windows Vista instead of the older Windows XP. Beyond this point, milestone naming schemes were no longer used, and the project would go on to be named Windows Vista with subsequent beta and release candidate builds. However, we mustn't forget that the development was completely reset. This major setback essentially considered all 2 years worth of work completely wasted. This was one of the major reasons that it took so long for Microsoft to release a follow-up to Windows XP. Microsoft had to come up with a groundbreaking change throughout the next 2 years, and that would eventually result in what is the final version of Windows Vista. Now, let's get on with the problems that so many people seem to have had. First of all, Windows Vista did not have the same requirements as Windows XP. In fact, they were literally completely different. Manufacturers that shipped their PCs with Windows Vista did not usually ship with adequate components, and as a result, most users would be frustrated with extremely slow speeds that in some cases would render the computer completely useless without a hard reboot. There are also general issues that cause blue screens of death. Blue screens are very universal, and there are many different reasons why such a problem can occur, but my hunch is that with such limited time Microsoft had, they rushed to push out a product and didn't have enough time to iron out all the problems before the operating system was released to manufacturers and consumers. And speaking of consumers, let's talk about them for a minute. There are obviously some people that voluntarily upgraded to Windows Vista. Those who did not read the requirements most likely had a rough time using Windows Vista and did not enjoy the experience because of ignorance in the fact that they did not read the system requirements and recommendations. This essentially pissed off so many people that Microsoft even offered ways to downgrade from Windows Vista back down to Windows XP. I also forgot to mention that Windows Vista was not compatible with a lot of hardware at the time. There was no one person to blame on this, but Windows Vista RTM, released to manufacturers, was released on November 1st, 2006. The final version that was shipped to consumers was released on January 30th, 2007. Manufacturers literally had 3 months to come up with driver installations for Windows Vista, but some purposely chose not to even support Windows Vista because of its reputation. And I know what a lot of you are thinking, and I'm mostly referring to the people who hate Windows Vista or have some sort of grudge against it. Apart from all of the problems that Windows Vista had at launch, it's still a great operating system. It introduced so many new features and standards for future Windows operating systems that makes it, in my opinion, one of the most important operating systems in Microsoft's history. Windows Vista truly paved the ground for Windows 7, which went on to be Microsoft's most successful operating systems of all time. It also pushed home and business computing forward and forced manufacturers to use newer hardware components so that we can expand for the future. Let's also not forget that 2 service packs were released for Windows Vista and its server counterpart, Windows Server 2008. These service packs really helped Windows Vista get back on its feet in terms of reliability, stability, usability, and functionality. Regardless of what you have to say, Windows Vista was probably one of the most important things that Microsoft has done, and there's no way that the Windows operating system would be how it is today without it. Windows Vista truly left a legacy.
this wicked world. Your data's uncorrupted, but does something skip inside you? That's what takes up time in your life. Add the sum of the slides, and sooner or later love comes inside you, gets behind you, takes you under its wing. Is it some kind of function, a reconstruction of where you've always been? Sense memory that's so passé, is that what passes for vision these days? I engineer no strangeness, I don't have that modern streak. What fills up the space in your life? Does the sum of the slides hurt? Sooner or later love comes inside you, gets behind you, takes you under its wing. Is it some kind of function, a reconstruction of where you've always been? I say time can hurt you, I can't be bothered to get you alone in this world. You can't do it yourself, but make your ends known to your means and your lovers. Drop your guard, get over yourself, kick your shoes to the floor and run from your cover, run to the other side of your head, and I'll stand right by you. Love comes inside you, gets behind you, takes you under its wing. Is it some kind of function, a reconstruction of where you've always been? I said love comes inside you, gets behind you, takes you under its wing. Is it some kind of function, a reconstruction of where you've always been? I said time can hurt you, I can't be bothered to get you alone in this world. I can't be bothered to get you alone in this world. I can't be bothered to get you alone in this world. Told me just what I had to live for, and there's no flight in my fight, and more than that, it's so alright, it's so alright. If I meet more than you're right, I guess you're right. If I wake up in your mind, I guess you're right. I guess you're smart, 'cause I'm taken by you, taking me apart. I could best believe I died to live for the hour dictates the need, and I am speaking like I'm spoken only for. If I meet more than you're right, I guess you're right. If I wake up in your mind, I guess you're right. If I sink into your sleep and make it deep, I guess you're right. If I never let you go, I know you so and oh so right.